another edition of Target Score Winnipeg. I am Joey Slattery, another stacked show for you today. Good to see you if you're watching on YouTube. Love to have you aboard if you're on the podcast version as well, available wherever you get your podcasts. Though, as I've been saying, if you're listening on the audio version, you might want to jump over to YouTube as well. A lot of extra things happening on the YouTube page, a lot of things you can't see when you're listening to, like highlights and things like that. So if you want to check it out, the YouTube handle is at Target Score Podcast. So again, at Target Score Podcast. Of course, follow us on Instagram at Target Score WPG, and myself on Instagram at Joey Slattery TV. And on the Instagram is where we post a lot of my reports, the game day reports, the weekly reports, the scoreboards, and of course, any information that comes up through the stories as the season goes on. A little bit later on in the show, we're going to have sideline reporter, CEBL sideline reporter from Vancouver, Chris Wiggins. He is the sideline reporter at Vancouver Bandits games, and Vancouver off to a hot start. Probably the best team in the league right now. I don't think anybody would argue that. And Winnipeg coming off a pair of tough losses, and I don't mean that in the sense that they were close and heartbreaking. They were just tough to watch. I'm sure if you're for a fan, for the coaching staff that has to watch this through, and even for the players, very tough start to the season. That first game, the excitement was there, and I think it was more telling than maybe initially we thought, where how Edmonton came back and almost won that game. Winnipeg snuck away with that home opening win, blew a big lead in target score time, and ended up winning a one-possession basketball game. Aside from the second quarter, really, of that first game, it's been a rough go for Winnipeg, losing both games. The Friday night game in Winnipeg, they lost 98-86. And then they followed that up in Calgary on Sunday with a 93-61 loss. Some of the stats a little bit better defensively for Winnipeg in the second game, but not by much. And their offense just wasn't there on the second game. That's for sure. And when you look at from a league perspective, Winnipeg has some work to do. But before we get to that, capping off the games that were, that first game against Calgary, we talked a lot about the size difference. Calgary a little bit smaller than they might have been in the past, but still have some big players, man. Like Greg Brown III was having a dunk contest these last two games on his own. But this is a team that is very athletic, and we were listening to the game day reports, and we'll pull a clip from that in a second. But one of the things Mike Taylor talked about was, the need to be good in transition defense, right? The transition was going to be key with this team that is very athletic. And when I was talking to Caleb Canales before the game in that pregame report, he went on a lot about the team and how excited they were for this opportunity to play in Winnipeg. And this is this thing that we've talked about in the past. It's a place in this league that players get excited to play in, right? They do tend to bring their best games here, but it brings the best out of Winnipeg as well. But one of the things that, kind of hit me was Calgary won a nail biter against Edmonton to open the season in Edmonton. Then they have to travel all the way to Niagara to play in the River Lions home opener, fresh off their championship, their first league championship. And they lose a very tight one that kind of looked like a few times in that game that Niagara might run away with it. And then they come back and make a game of it. And they end up, losing by, I think it was 4 points in that game. But here's what Coach Caleb Canales had to say about that game before they played Winnipeg on Friday night. Take a listen.
I feel we're good where we're at. Felt we gave a game away on the road last game at Niagara. I loved our composure. I loved our poise. It was a great opportunity. We talked about it all week. We were looking forward to the challenge. But we know we're going to see them down the road. So, they made plays when they had to, and, tip the hat to them.
So you can tell that Calgary was coming in with confidence, right? He thought they gave that game away to Niagara. And to Niagara's credit, they are short a few players, still waiting on some players to return, and, not their full roster, but coming up with a big win. And I think we're starting to learn how big that win was after we saw the next two games Calgary played. Not easy to start the season on the road for 3 straight games. That's what Calgary did. 3 straight games, and it wasn't like, it was all in a pocket. They started in Edmonton, which isn't too far, but then they got to hop a plane, go all the way to Niagara, and then they're going back for a few days to Calgary, then back to Winnipeg. So it's not like this was, a couple of games in 4 days and all in the pocket of, I don't know, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, and Edmonton, kind of staying in the prairies. You do have that game where you have to go out east and then come back west and then go east again. So, not an easy travel to start the season. And maybe there's a little more energy at this point. Maybe it's not as taxing as it would be, say, mid-season, end of season. But I digress. I mean, they dominated Winnipeg in every sense, every category, really. But you look at the big ones here. Actually, before we get to the stats, this is what Coach Taylor was saying pregame of that first game. So let's take a listen to the interview where he talks about the importance of what the focus needed to be if they were going to be successful against Calgary.
We want to try to win with our defense. We want to try to come out and do our job in transition defense. We want to guard one-on-one, force them into tough shots. If we can then control the boards and get out on offense and make them guard us, I think then good things can happen.
Now, that transition defense did not pan out. Calgary just much stronger than I had anticipated when you see them live. And for those of you that were at the game, you can attest to it, man. There had to be 17 dunks. And I'm calling the game, and I was ready for none of them. They were just coming left, right, and center from both teams, to be fair. I mean, a very entertaining game from that respect, from an athleticism standpoint. A great show. You got your money's worth for sure in that one. One of the more fun games I've called in terms of, just the showcasing of the talent in this league. But you look at the statistics in that one. Points from turnovers. Calgary had 27 to Winnipeg's 19. This is another thing. We talked about the size, and another thing that, Coach Taylor said in that interview was the need to get to the glass, right? And Kyler Filowich had talked about that too in the game day report about, having to dominate the glass. And he's been really good. We'll get to him in a second. But 58 to 38 was the difference. Calgary with the 58 points, Winnipeg with 38 points in the paint. And a lot of those points did come off the fast break. 23 fast break points to Winnipeg's 3 in game one. Ruggsy Miller-Moore, after not playing in target time, that's that game in Niagara, comes in with a record, a career high for him, 29 points. I think before the record was 27 in his career. So he had a career high 29 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists in that game. And he wasn't the only difference maker. He led the scoring, but we talked about how that team can spread the ball, and they very much did. Jameer Nelson Jr. was very impressive. He played great. Greg Brown III, again, can jump out of the gym defensively, offensively, just a treat to watch. And they were having fun. I mean, there was a moment where he threw up an alley-oop to Greg Brown, and they just kind of stop and look each other in the face, and they're yelling, laughing with each other, look like playground having fun. I don't think it was in any way, to try. It wasn't a trash talky kind of, it legit looked like it wasn't them pounding their chest. It was just like, whoa, this is what basketball is. This is fun basketball. And it was not fun for Winnipeg. And then they have the tough assignment of having to go to Calgary without any practice. Quick turnaround. It was a Sunday afternoon game at 3 p.m. So here's some of the things that, Mike Taylor had to say that they had to address from, the scout being the same and going from Winnipeg to play Calgary again, this time in Calgary. Let's take a listen to the post-game conference.
We tried a bunch of different actions and a bunch of different looks at them. But in general, I think, our team has to look at the video and work on our shot selection. I think that's the point that, if you're not getting calls, or if the pressure defense and the physical defense is there impacting you, you've got to do a better job together to create better looks for yourself. And to their credit, they played very, very good physical defense. And, we got to, let's say, improve in that area for ourselves, the type of shots that we're getting against that type of D. Scouting report's the same. We'll talk about the things that they did offensively, the things that they did defensively, and hopefully we can respond to that pressure defense and physicality in a much better team system and team structure Sunday in that rematch. So
yeah, the scout doesn't change. The keys to the game are still the same, but not having that practice to adjust to it had to have played a bit of a factor because they weren't able to make those adjustments in game two. You look at the second game, they score less points. So 15 less points they scored in Calgary, Winnipeg. But, a little bit more even in some regards, like the points from turnovers, 17 points for Calgary. So 10 points less in the first game, 15 for Winnipeg. But again, the points in the paint, 46 for Calgary, 28 for Winnipeg. And then you look at the fast break points, 15-5. Again, a few less for Calgary, but a 10-point differential in fast break points. They knew it was coming. It just seemed to be too much. There just wasn't an option. Further to that, in both games, you started looking at the shot selection. So here in the first game, Winnipeg, they were 6 for 35 from beyond the arc, 17%. 6 3-pointers out of 35 attempts. And then you look at the first game where it was a little bit tighter, slightly better, 11 for 40, 27%, but not what you want to see. I mean, clearly once this team was going cold, they just, kept trying to get the lid off from 3-point land and kind of got away from, what we expected to see. This is a team that's supposed to be, remember Alex Campbell talking about in training camp, whipping the ball around, seeing that fast movement, finding the right shot. But there wasn't a lot of that going on. I mean, in that first game, though, or in the second game, rather, the one guy that really stuck out to me, and he's impressed me flat out this season so far, Terry Roberts, 21 points, 9 rebounds. Again, the point guard, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. He led all rebounders. Yeah, he led all rebounders in that game for Winnipeg, that is, with 9 rebounds. Still had the 7 assists. 5 steals in the game. I mean, just played phenomenal. And in that first game, again, 15 points, 5 boards, 10 assists. So he gets the double-double. Another 3 steals in that one. He was a bright spot. Another person who's been a bright spot too for me, Kyler Filowich, 30 total rebounds so far this year. That's the best on the team for a rookie through 3 games. So he's averaging 10 rebounds a game. And then Winnipeg as a whole, though, 184. The rebounding hasn't been awful. 184 total. 41 of those have been offensive rebounds. So they're 4th in rebounding in the league right now, 3rd in offensive rebounds. But that is basically it when it comes to like the good news and the, at least on the upper half of the standings. Field goal percentage as of the recording of this episode, which is May 26th. Field goal percentage is at 36.3. So they're 87 for 240 from the field. That is last in the league. 3-point field goal percentage, 24.8. They've hit 27 of their 109 attempts, last again in the CEBL. And then further to that, free throws. From the free throw line, 59.4%. That's 38 for 64. They are last in that as well. So this is a team that certainly has not found its chemistry yet, has not found its identity. And, again, Simi Shitu's still not here. But even then, I look at Simi Shitu not being here, and Kyler Filowich has been filling that void phenomenally for a rookie. So it doesn't really seem like that's where the problems lie, although you will have a dependable scorer inside as well, another one who is also big and strong and is going to clear space in the key. But, it's a tough 2 games. Calgary clearly much better than I think a lot of people would have thought. There's a lot of new faces to that team. Coach Caleb Canales, as we mentioned before, NBA experience, seems to have these guys dialed in. Seems to be a player's coach, looking at the shoot around, guys seem to like him. A little more regimented than some other teams. They were doing a lot of things in unison and things like that. But they've been, I remember Ruggsy Miller Moore in that first game day report saying, this team's still learning each other is how he put it, right? Trying to learn the strengths, how they can work together, giving up a shot for a better shot. And there was no issues with that. It either just clicked on game 3 and carried into game 4, or it just wasn't Winnipeg's night for 2 nights in a row. But they've already lost the season series. I think they only play Calgary one more time. So, these are important games. Calgary now shifts up to second place, now 2-1 on the season. Winnipeg now 1-2 on the season. So, it's again, there's no panic button to be pushed. First off, it's too early in the season. I do believe things are going to get better. So this isn't the sky is falling by any stretch. But the one thing they wanted to be sure of is not getting complacent, knowing that they are in the Final Four in the West Final because Winnipeg is hosting championship weekend. So right now, this is those opportunities where I see it where you can make that turn and prove that point now, right? Because this is the time where you can kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, not worry about these losses so much, knowing that regardless of how the season pans out, you're going to be in the West Final. But this is something that they've all said they don't want to fall into that trap. So there's definitely be work to do. But yeah, Calgary, I think I said was 2-1. They're 3-1. Winnipeg 1-2, ahead of the Stingers. Stingers have played one more game. They're 1-3, and Saskatchewan still winless, 0-3 in the West. And it doesn't get easier because the first place team in the West is the Vancouver Bandits. Vancouver Bandits are 3-0, and they are an insane 3-0. They have not scored less than 100 points in those 3 games. They have not won by less than 30 points in any of those games. Their plus minus in points is plus 107. They've in 3 games, they've scored 107 more points than they've allowed, which is nuts. To put it in perspective, Calgary has 42. And then in the East, the best one is Montreal Alliance with 22 as well. So yeah, you're looking at a team that can score, that can move the ball. You talk about their scoring and how they can move the ball around. They've got 3 players in the top 10 so far in scoring through 3 games. When we look at totals, Tyree Samuel has 73 points throughout the year. Kyle Mangus has 63 points. And then there's Mitch Creek, who's got 71 points, who's just, comes as advertised. We've talked a lot about Mitch Creek, and we will continue to talk more about Mitch Creek. If you put it into averages per game, all of those guys are in the top 5. Tyree Samuel averaging 24.3 points a game. Mitch Creek averaging 23.7 points a game. And Kyle Mangus averaging 21 points a game. This is a team that big, strong, Mitch Creek was a problem last year when they came into Winnipeg and won that game. This road doesn't get easier. Calgary's a really good team, but I still think Vancouver is the best team right now in the West. But it gives you an opportunity if you're Winnipeg. If you win that game and you beat Vancouver and you overcome those odds, you now pull yourself to 2-2, right? So suddenly you go from a little bit of, maybe sweating a little bit to now you're 500. Gives the Bandits their first loss of the season. And the other thing with the Bandits too is you wonder, I mean, these are pros. They're fully aware, and this is a team that is very much about mindfulness. So I do feel like they're going to be paying attention to this. And what I mean is they've won 3 straight games at 30 plus points, and they're yet to miss the century mark. Can get complacent, right? Especially when you're going to a team that just got blown out of 2 games by another division rival. So there's always that. And of course, if you're Winnipeg, you're hoping for that, but you're not depending on that. Winnipeg has to go in and make a huge statement. Now they've got a few days to practice. Again, not a ton of time because, they travel after the game, get back Monday, practice Tuesday. You're back on the floor Wednesday for a game against a team where I guess we know what to expect, maybe a little bit more than what we did with Calgary. A team that has been hot off the start. This isn't a team that had a couple of close games and then, before coming to Winnipeg. This is a team that's blown 3 teams out. So to me, they're going to have to get a start early. They're going to have to start taking the ball inside, try and draw some fouls on guys like Mitch Creek and Kyle Mangus, and try to get these guys in foul trouble where the rotation players have to come through and maybe get to the foul line a little more. But again, free throw shooting needs to come up a little bit as well, where they're not doing too hot at that as well, or either rather at 38 and 64 on the season. So this is a team that 100%, can do it. I think they have the talent there, and maybe they have their Calgary game where things start to click. But right now there's been glimpses for sure. That second quarter in that first game, They came back, made it a 1-point game at half, and it looked like they had all the momentum. But it's the starts. You come out of that set or that halftime in that second half, then Calgary had 5 points in the first few seconds, and it just felt in that moment that, ooh, like this might be one of those games, and that magic just wasn't there as we'd seen it last year, right? I think a lot of people almost expecting the comeback, right? We've seen Winnipeg go down, claw their way back in the second half when we're looking at home games, particularly last season, and going through target time and coming up with that you know, amazing win, the wins that, we become accustomed to, almost spoiled with last year, right? Like those exciting comebacks and exciting finishes. And it just wasn't in the cards on Friday night, nor was it in the cards on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, rather. So you got to put it behind you. I mean, this is a team that's, talked about that. Past is the past. Got to stay in the present and deal with the task at hand. But Vancouver is going to be a heavy, heavy task for Winnipeg. And, for me, the key player going to be Mitch Creek, of course, Tyrese Samuel as well, who's the leading scorer on Vancouver as of right now. But it's another team where you can't really peg one guy. You definitely have to put, a lot of pressure on Mitch Creek in a number of facets, from not just the scoring, but I mean, he's a good rebounder. He's averaging 5 rebounds a game, nearly 3 assists a game, a couple of steals, block. I mean, he could do a little bit of everything, but he's a guy that really seems to bring the most out of his team. We saw it last year, right? Mitch Creek gets to Vancouver. Vancouver gets stronger through that second half of the season, get all the way to the final and lose by a hair to Niagara. So now you look at it, all right, they went to Niagara in that rematch, blew them out of the water, right? So you see that there's probably that anger of last year and that wanting of redemption and not wasting this chance. So it does seem like Vancouver's on a mission this year, and now they've got Mitch Creek for a full season, and really seems that the team's culture is built around him and what he's been able to contribute in a short time with that franchise. And of course, Kyle Julia's teams are good. They're strong. They're gritty. And we're going to get that with Vancouver. At this point, we'll bring in the Vancouver Bandits sideline reporter for the CEBL, Chris Wiggins. He's been there for a couple of years now. He knows these guys quite well. We talk a little bit about that culture, some of the differences that, we see with the Vancouver Bandits in terms of their basketball operations and the different things that they focus on, and how it's affected the team and how some of these players affected the team. So without further ado, here's our guest this week from Vancouver, the Bandits sideline reporter, Chris Wiggins. I'm now joined by Bandit sideline reporter Chris Wiggins, who is having a heck of a time, I'm sure, covering this team right now because Vancouver has been absolutely on fire. But first off, Chris, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me, a fellow Western Conference sideline guy yourself. So thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem. And I probably a tough time for the Sea Bears to be hosting the Vancouver Bandits after dropping 2 games to Calgary. But you've seen these guys up close. They've played a few games at home now, and you look at the dominance of this team. Before we can get into the dominance, I want to talk about Mitch Creek, the dominant force of the dominant team, coming off that 36-point performance just the other night. I was wondering, last year he came in and he seemed to have such an impact on this Vancouver team. Right. It just seemed like as soon as he came in last year, there was this culture shift where these guys almost seemed a little bit more mature, a little bit more even keeled.
Yes.
And
yeah,
maybe I'm the guy on the outside giving him too much credit, but you see this guy all the time. What has this guy meant to this team and what has been the key to his success?
he's so level-headed. He's such a great, chat, halftime chat, post-game chat, whatever. He's so colorful. He's mature for his age. Like I often go, wow, you're that young. Like, so he's such a great leader. I mean, obviously he's got the most experience on the team in terms of a pro perspective, right? Like, a stint with the Brooklyn Nets, also the Minnesota Timberwolves. So he knows how to be a pro. There were a lot of personalities on our squad last year. Tajay's a colorful guy, Nick Ward, but Mitch was the one that, made everybody gel really, really nicely. He's level-headed, and you know what? I think he has a lot in common with Kyle Julius, and that has really helped as well. The question for me is, what would have happened if Mitch came in earlier last season? Like,
Right.
how would that season, how would the Bandits season, how would it have been different if Mitch came in earlier?
Well, and that's the thing too. You look at it with him there, they go to the finals and, kind of a coin toss. They end up losing to Niagara, but it could have went either way.
Yeah.
But you're right. And this guy came in, had such an immediate impact. And now you're looking at it, he's having a really strong start to the year. And I don't think it's anybody's surprise, at least especially in the Western division where we see him a lot more. But you look at how that training camp, being a training camp, has affected his ability to, get off to a hot start. Have you talked to him at all in terms of what that training camp meant and how he feels it might have better prepared him?
Well, I mean, he said it to me after one of the preseason games. Like, Vancouver was my only choice. I wanted to be here, and that makes a huge difference. When you want to be here, you want to come early. You do everything you can to be here. I know his partner's here, so that makes a difference. But he wants to be here, and that makes a difference. And yeah, again, the leadership in the room. I have a feeling he may have had his hands on some of this like roster construction from overseas with Kyle. I wouldn't be surprised if there were some phone calls back and forth about some of the guys that Kyle was interested in bringing in. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at his stats here: 23 points, 24 a game so far. The sad thing about the other night with the 36 points is he missed a free throw to make it 37 to break the franchise record. So it was one free throw. But yeah, I mean, in terms of his leadership and, the stats speak for themselves. I'm not sure if he's like a household name yet for some of the Eastern Conference teams. What do you think?
You know what? I'll say, like, I'm a big fan of the CEBL Weekly Show, and they put out their front runners, and they talked about Kobe McEwen, and that's no respect to Kobe McEwen, but I remember thinking the first thing that came to my head, Chris, was Mitch Creek. Like Mitch Creek to me is the
Yes.
guy
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
before a game is played.
Yeah.
And again, I think we do have the privilege, especially you, seeing him more often than I have. But I remember they made the trip to Winnipeg, and I talked to him before the game, and we chatted for a while. And you know how it is, right? You go to a shoot around, and you get a couple minutes with every guy, but at one point I was like, hey, like, if you got to go, like, it's fine. He's like, oh, I'm good. Let's talk, and he just
Yeah.
kind of laid it all out on
Yeah.
the line in terms of his philosophy and, what he's looking to do and what he likes about this league. And, even for teammates, not even just teammates, like players that he watches, right? Like what they need to do to be better players as a guy who's kind of seen it all. And one of the interesting things for me was when I asked him, do you have aspirations to be a coach? He said, actually, I want to get into player development. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's such a
Yeah.
fine difference between the two. But I'm
Yeah.
like he would be very good at that. Just I would imagine, just based on the insight that I gathered in a short meeting with him, and then seeing what he's able to do on the court. But I think there's a little bit of overlookedness only because, again, he didn't play that full year last year. That could be part of it. He had a big impact in a shorter period of time. But now we're seeing that this guy might be the MVP when it's all said and done if things continue as is. But I think I think it's a couple more Eastern road trips
Yeah.
and a couple of more, once he gets on the road more and they see them a little bit more, I think there'll be a little bit more respect, coast to coast, so to speak. But out west, I think, even here in Winnipeg, like people were kind of wondering, like, hey, well, is there any chance Mitch Creek comes to Winnipeg, right? Winnipeg's a good draw for a lot of star players. So, that didn't come to fruition. But you said something, Chris, that kind of caught my ear, and I'm curious about it because, hey, Vancouver is one of my favorite cities. I love going to Vancouver. I understand the allure to go there, but it doesn't seem like he's going there particularly because it's just a nice city. There seems to be something about the culture with the Bandits that he's really enjoying.
Yeah, and I'll go back to your point about how Mitch, wanted to get into player development. Like he takes care, he prioritizes his mental health. That they've got their mental health, coach on the sidelines with them. 3 or 4 assistants. There's always a coach with a group of players. Like they separate guards and bigs and wing guys at practice, and there's always a coach with each group of players. It's very, very hands on. They do things outside of, as most teams do, probably do things outside of practice, outside of games. Mitch is a unique guy. Like he's a motorcycle guy. He's a skydiver. He's a thrill seeker, but he's also level-headed. He's also, he prioritizes his mental health. And you see him meditating pregame with John. And I mean, yes, Vancouver is a draw with mountains and ocean. And, when it's not raining, it's beautiful out here. But there's something special about this group, and Kyle Julius has done a really, really good job of bringing in the right characters. And again, I wouldn't be shocked if Mitch had his hands on that, phone calls, Zoom calls, whatever the case may be, during the off season to kind of coordinate who they think they should be bringing in, because, and we can segue right into the dominance. Like it's been a pretty fantastic start for Vancouver. Like I almost want to say something's got to give, because it's been a 40-point win, a 37-point win, a 40, another 30-point win against Edmonton, on Saturday night. Like it's just, I actually thought the Edmonton game was going to be a really, really competitive game, and they just blew them out of the water, in that second half, up 11 at halftime, and then they kind of just took off. Prior to the Edmonton game, both against Saskatchewan and against Niagara, their third quarter, they beat both teams in the third quarter by 18 points. So, it's safe to say they come out of the gates pretty hot in the second half, and the dominance has just been crazy.
Yeah, and shout out to John Giesbrecht because he's a Winnipegger.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, is he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I ran into him at a UW game in the offseason.
Okay.
And then I caught up with him a little bit. Seems like a really good guy. And like, it's really cool because he's kind of innovated, at least in this part of the country with basketball, the importance of the mental health and stuff. So I love what he's doing. I follow him on Instagram, and he's got some great content. Even, and for those that are listening, I think it's Play Free Ball. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, Play Free Ball or Play Free B-Ball is his Instagram handle. And there's a lot of stuff that he throws out there that's just applicable to all of life. So, if you're looking for mental performance, give him a follow. He's awesome.
Sorry, just to cut you off there with John, like he's got these guys like with headsets on, and like, they're monitoring their calmness, and John's got all this, data, like wavelength and all this stuff on his phone. And I said, next time we're at practice, like, can you wire me up and see what, where my calmness level is at? Because I'm a type A personality. I got thoughts going everywhere. I'm not a meditator, and I would be really interested to see what John's statistics are for me.
Oh, dude, I got into meditation a couple of years ago, and it's crazy how much, because I'm kind of like you. I'm more of like, I'm not type A. Like sometimes my brain is just like, all over the place, right? And started doing that, and it helped. And I'm not in any level what he is. I don't have any fancy stuff, but just kind of going through it, learning how has helped a lot. But I'd love to sit with him long term in a podcast situation, actually, right, where you can really dig into it.
It'd be really
interesting.
He'd be a great guest.
So before the dominance, actually, just because we were going back to another segue, the culture of the Bandits, this is something to me, they do seem a little bit progressive in terms of how they hire staff. And, John being one of them, right? Like the mental health side of things. And it just seems to be a different vibe. And as all teams do have different atmospheres and energies, what is it about, the Vancouver culture that might strike you as maybe a little bit different and maybe appealing as opposed to traditional basketball systems?
Again, I just think it's so hands-on. I think they're a close group, again, outside of practice. Like they've got one coach for each 2 or 3 guys at practice. Like there's always a coach with someone. In terms of like their closeness and I imagine they vet their assistants, pretty thoroughly before they bring them in. New assistant coach, Lou Alafid, had his hands on the Dallas Mavericks G League team. I believe is it Texas Stars? Is that their Texas Stars?
Texas Stars or Austin Stars.
Texas Stars. I should probably get that right. But and from a player development perspective as well, I think he had some hands, very much like John, from that perspective with that team. So I think it's just the closeness of everybody, and and how they prioritize taking care of their bodies, their mental health, cold plunging. They do all that, that body work, that mental health work, and it's I think everybody buys in from that perspective.
So we were in hockey mode, actually. It's the Texas Legends.
Texas Legends.
Yeah, Texas Legends is the name. Texas Stars is the Dallas Stars affiliate in the AHL. Okay. Yeah, but we were close.
50-50 chance.
Yeah, the actually with assistant coach last year with the Sea Bears was with part of that organization as well. But now we can go to the dominance. The dominance part of this whole thing. Like they have 3 games where they've not scored less than 100 points. So offensively, I look at that and say, you can make the argument, sure, early in the season, they might just but be ahead of other teams, or other teams might be a little rusty. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because everybody has the same training camp time and everything else. But more than 100 points in every game, and all of them have been 30-point victories. We
Yeah.
don't see that much of, we were talking about parity in another episode of this show of, we were trying to make our predictions in the first show of the season. And, my co-host Taylor brought up the parity of the league. And then Vancouver comes in and says, like, you got to reach up to the parity level, because it seems like right now they're just firing on all cylinders. But when you look at what the difference is, when you look at them go up against teams, where is that dominance taking place? Where are other teams lacking, or that they might need to kind of look at when they're going up against, or at least scouting out the Vancouver Bandits, as to why they're so dominant and why they're getting so many looks?
Well, I mean, I think they have so many weapons. Like, they're scoring by committee this year. I was just looking at their. Of course, now I lost my tab. I was just looking at their player stats. I'm pretty sure it's like 4 or 5 guys are averaging double digits.
Yep.
3 of which are in the 20s. Their assists are through the roof. They lead the league in assists. They've got 79 assists. They dominate the league in the plus minus category. So they're doing it by committee, and it could be anyone's night, right? It was Tyrese's night the first night where he broke the single season record for points in a game, 36. And then the next night it was Kyle Mangus, who just, once he sees 2 or 3 go in, at the floodgates open, and it's just like he's got, as soon as he crosses half court, you got to guard him. And then it was Mitch Creek on Saturday night. So they score by committee, and it really could be anybody's night. And again, it speaks to the personnel that they've brought in, because they've done a great job of not only recruiting, good G Leaguers, but also, like, Tyrese Samuel is a G Leaguer and he's a Canadian. So it helps when they have to have Canadians on the floor late in the game.
I also think we're starting to realize now, and I'm sure, teams have been around for a while, have kind of figured this out, but how important those Canadian spots are,
Yes.
right? And in terms of, even they talk about the payroll, salary cap, and putting more towards Canadians to ensure you're getting the best ones, because they are so crucial. And when you got a guy that has G League experience, NCAA experience, and has that pro tier where you don't really think of what country he's from, right? They just happen to be really good basketball players and happen to be from Canada. That's a huge boost for sure. Now you look at the Winnipeg Sea Bears. So Vancouver coming to Winnipeg, always a tough place to play. And this year, 1-1. They had the one close win against Edmonton. Where Edmonton, though, were down 16 points going into target time, down 12 points when Winnipeg was 2 points away from the target, and they made it a 1-possession game. Wow. Right? So even that win wasn't overly dominant, although they were playing really well throughout most of that game. And then Calgary comes in, blows the roof off. And then they do the same thing on the home and home in Calgary, where Winnipeg has never won. So here they are coming out, after an opening win. They have 2 straight losses, and now you're going up against the best team in the West, probably the league right now. When you look at the opportunity for Vancouver, what is most important for them to keep focused on? Because there is part of it that makes me think, the atmosphere is going to be there and teams tend to bring their best, but you're riding pretty high at this point, a bunch of 30-point victories, and you're probably looking at the Winnipeg Sea Bears right now thinking, well, this should be another 30-point victory. Is there anything that you look at that, this team might have to be mindful of moving into that game against Winnipeg?
Well, and I talked to Kyle Julius about it pregame on Saturday night. And my first question was, it's easy to get complacent when when you have 3 30-point plus victories. Like, how do you guys continue to apply pressure, not get complacent, not get too cocky, too ahead of yourselves. And again, I think it's just the personnel they have. They keep everybody accountable, coaches to players, players to players. And the beauty about this league is, they're like, that Niagara win, I really don't think it tells a full story, because they're waiting on 4 or 5 guys, right, that are finishing overseas.
Niagara's a good club.
Yes, I really think it's going to be they're going to have a great second half to their season when these guys report. But that's the beauty of this league, and I think that holds Vancouver accountable as well, because James Karnik is still waiting to come to Vancouver. We're still waiting on James Karnik. Sam Maie is injured, right? Dwayne Notice is injured. Like, how does that change things? When these guys start to get back into the rotation, like, these guys are gelling right now and they've got some good chemistry. But when you add 3 or 4 new faces that haven't really been around for practice and haven't really had chemistry with these guys on the floor, how does that change things? So they have to stay sharp, and that's the beauty of this league, is it changes week to week. It changes game to game. So I think that that's, important to remember.
Well, even we look at the Sea Bears, like that's one of the big things, right? Is a whole new look team, and they got away from the star mentality where, for the last 2 years it was Teddy Allen, and when Teddy Allen left, it was Justin Wright Foreman, but there was always like this guy that had name power within the league that, everybody knew where the ball was going. And this year they've kind of turned to that. And there are times that we're looking at now where it's, we're being pitched a brand of basketball that is being spread around. And then it seems like as the game goes on and these leads start to get, further and further apart, they start putting up these shots. Like their 3-point percentage has been not great, especially in the last 2 games. And now on the flip side of that, you see guys like Kyler Filowich, who, from Winnipeg, just finished his collegiate career playing at March Madness, looks like a seasoned veteran out there. Like the guy's just ripping down boards through 3 games at a pace that you would expect from a veteran. So there are guys that are taking advantage of the opportunity. But in Winnipeg's case, Simi Chateau has still not showed up. Right. And to me, when they made that signing, I'm like, dude, that's one of the best Canadians you're going to get. And a guy who was a huge pain for at least Winnipeg and a lot of the teams, but particularly Winnipeg when he was playing in Calgary in 2023, right? So you kind of went to the source of where your pain points were throughout the year. So I do think Winnipeg is going to get better with Simi Chateau in the lineup, but they have not been able to find the chemistry now, where Vancouver, it kind of seems like they're on the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's, we have it now, but when you start working these guys in, how is it going to be? How is it going to disrupt, if at all? Right? Because it can't. I mean, it's weird to say, but it really can't get much better than this.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And we all kind of went into, like, at least the media staff and the game day staff went into the pregame of Edmonton going, all right, like this is going to be a closer game. Like hopefully this isn't, a big reality check for us. And then boom, they win by 30 again. So, I mean, something's got to give at some point. I imagine they will get a reality check at some point, and then it's just how they bounce back and how they respond to that. I want to point out that Shamar Gibbons has been fantastic. He's basically, again, you talk about a guy who's come in and jumped right into the fire and has to learn a system in a couple of days, and then he gets some minutes against Niagara. Not a great scoring effort. Couldn't really, find the basket, offensively from that perspective. But I think he had 11 assists against Niagara, broke a single season record Saturday night against Edmonton with 15 assists. Like he's out of a suitcase and he's distributing the rock really, really well. And so, you add guys like that, and then you pile on Kyle Mangus, who can just have the floodgates open as soon as he sees a couple of threes go in. Maybe it's Mitch's night. I don't know if people have figured out that Mitch is left-handed yet. He's got this like left-handed floater. He starts his back down, from quite far out of the paint, to be honest. And he's deceivingly strong. I think he's in way better shape than he was last year, this year. And I would say that to Mitch's face. That's no shot at Mitch. I think he's just in way better shape. And he's got that like left-handed fall away floater that is such, so soft off the glass, and Tyrese can affect the game above the rim, where maybe Nick Ward last year couldn't really get off his feet like Tyrese can. Tyrese is catching lobs, swatting, chase down swats. Like it's really done by committee from every perspective: rebounds, assists, and scoring.
Yeah, Magus has been very impressive as well, right?
Yeah.
You kind of think it's like Tyree Samuel, Mitch Creek kind of takes the headlines, I think, from outside of Vancouver, but Magus has been a great component of that team too. And yeah, what is he? Like over 50% from 3-point land. Like good start to the season for that guy as well. Jeb, you got to see part of the outdoor game. Looked
Yes.
really cool in
Yes.
Montreal.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this, and now they've made it known that this is something they want to make it regular occurrence, right? An annual thing. Is this something Vancouver would be into? Because I'm sitting here thinking, you could take the show from Langley to Vancouver, right? There's so many beautiful setups in that area. Like I feel like this is a natural progression to go to the West next year in Vancouver. Have you heard anything there? Is there any interest?
No rumblings yet. We don't have a tennis stadium like they do at IGA. I wouldn't be shocked if they did it where the Rogers Cup is played in Toronto as well. But yeah, in terms of Vancouver, if they get a nice day, and there's, it's dry for a couple of days, you don't have to worry about some of the condensation issues that you saw in Montreal. Who knows? They've definitely got some facilities for it. I think they would have to put a little bit more into it in terms of like structures and all that kind of stuff to make it a basketball atmosphere. But no, I haven't heard anything, and you'll be the first to know if I do.
Sounds good. Yeah, because it takes some creativity. I feel like
Totally.
with some creativity, you could totally make it work. There's
Yeah.
definitely some areas in Vancouver
But
that
I
would work.
love that the league always tries stuff, right? Like they
Same.
try these, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
try these crazy when I saw that outdoor game, I was like, wow, already they're trying something like this. It's the league is not scared to try things like that, and it's really, really great to see.
Helps with the ownership too, right? Like now there's a lot of private
Yes.
ownership that are buying
Yeah.
these franchises, Montreal being one of the ones that were recently bought out. So I think that really helps. And there's that innovation now too, because, the owners want to create some excitement around it as well. One of the things I'd love to see come back is the Clash, right? They had in
Yeah.
Quebec City, the All-Star game. And I heard, I don't know if it was in one of the game interviews or a podcast or what, or an article, but Mike Morielli was talking about bringing that back. I would love to see some form of all-star weekend. It doesn't have to be crazy long, but something where you have a little festival. It kind of gives you, like, you could have the championship weekend and another team can get the all-star weekend. I think it could definitely fly, but it's just, yeah, it's crazy the stuff that they've been trying, and it's been successful. I mean, even that game in Quebec where they don't have a team, wouldn't know any of the players really, and they showed out in Quebec City, and I cannot wait until the league expands there, and then you get the Montreal Quebec City expansion. I'm interested to see where they would go in the West. Like, would it be a Kelowna or a Victoria? Like,
Yeah.
because you could see a
Yeah.
battle of BC happening as well.
I've
But
said this too. Halifax, Atlantic Canada, Halifax would be a great city for basketball as well. So it'd be. I'm anxious to see, where the next city is going to be, and I would love to see a more like traditional playoff format too.
yeah,
Maybe a best of five, and I'm sure it's been talked about. And as the league expands, they've added games this year. So as it continues to progress, I'm sure that's the next natural step for the playoffs.
well, that's the thing. I look at the playoff part of it, and it's the timing, I think, right? Like, as much as you'd love to see a series, I do like, I'll say this, I do like the concept of championship weekend. I do like how it's an event
Yep.
and it's a party. And I think, based on what I've heard and have seen from Winnipeg, I think it's going to be like, this one will be next level from the ones we've seen in the past. And I think that's kind of like that'll be the echelon. If they stay with that, that'll be the one that kind of feels more like a Grey Cup, let's say, right? Like the Grey Cup festival. But I think what you would do, and the way I kind of look at it, is instead of having, because I know owners want to have that game at home, obviously, and you'd like to have your team win on home court or have a series. But I think you have the conference finals as its own thing. So, kind of like the CFL, where if you can win up all the way to host to the conference final, and then you go to the neutral territory, like whoever won the bid for championship weekend, and just focus it around the one game. I think the league is getting to a point where it doesn't need to be a Final Four format. You just get to the final and then really pump up the owners can pump up the conference final and have their own little celebration, maybe some trophies there. Especially as the league gets older and there's different things that you can honor, different people you can honor with different types of awards. I think it'd be really cool to have like an Eastern Conference final, a Western Conference final, or whatever division final, and have a bit of a ceremony, right? Like, it's hard to get
Yeah.
through that, and you get through your conference, and I think there
Yeah.
should be something said for that. I think that would be awesome. Or you go to a best of three even, right? You just go, the lower seed team gets the first game and the next two games are the other place. I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind seeing that either. But I do
Yeah.
think there's something with championship week. And I think, like, you've gone this far with it. And I know there's been rumblings of how can they change it or adjust it. But I think if you hit it right, there's a way that it all works out and everybody kind of gets a piece of the pie.
Despite we having championship weekend in Vancouver already, I think this is going to be the championship weekend to remember, just because of the venue and how crazy Winnipeg Sea Bears fans are for this team. Like, it's the venue for it, it's the it's the fan base for it. It's going to be a great championship weekend, it sounds like, in Winnipeg.
Oh, I'd be shocked if they don't sell out the entire stadium.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
15, like 15.5, somewhere around there. I mean, they've already gotten close. Like, they've already pushed it up, to 11,000. So I would, and especially if Winnipeg makes it to the final, like that first game for sure, the conference final. But if Winnipeg turns things around, which there's plenty of season left, and I do think they're going to get better. But if they can avoid the pitfalls from last year and get better this year and peak at the right time, that final game, that would be probably the toughest atmosphere to play in for a road team for sure. I could only see it, but looks like Vancouver, though, might be the team they have to get through. Calgary as well. Clearly
we'll
have their
see.
number.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, we'll see this Wednesday, right? Looking forward to
Yes.
having that call. That'll
Yep.
be on CEBL Plus, TSN Plus. and I'll be on the call for that one. But you guys do a great job out there in Vancouver too. You guys have a lot of fun out there. It seems like you guys have a great chemistry, and it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know if you're probably around my age where, James Cebulski's on there. I was like, man, I remember James Cebulski from The Score, like, let alone TSN. Like, I'm like, The Score is where I remember that guy from. So
When
it's
they
been cool to
announced
see him
it
there.
to start the season last year, I'm like, this is awesome. Like he was the guy on Sportsnet with Carolyn Cameron, and I woke up, watching highlights with, right? And
Yeah,
so
because yeah.
he was a big name, and is a big name. So he's been really, really great to work with. He makes it easy for Cheryl, for Andrew, for myself. So and he's funny. You can throw anything at him, and he's got a response for it. So thank you. It's been really fun. He's been great to work with. And before we wrap up here, I just want to send our condolences to Chad's family and the Winnipeg organization. What you guys did was fantastic. The ceremony and all that stuff. So we were watching and thinking about you guys.
Actually, great you brought that up, because what we've been doing is just asking people, if they have any stories or something that stands out about Chad, whether it's an interaction or just, what you noticed when he rolled through town, things like that. But is there anything that sticks out to you, whether it's a memory or a meeting you had with him, or just something that stuck out when you saw him on the floor?
I didn't really get a chance to talk to him a lot. It was my first season on the sidelines last season, so I haven't really had many conversations with him. But I will say this: his smile was always there. He was always having a good time. He was always the big teddy bear in the room. He always had a big smile on his face, and he was always enjoying himself. So that's really all you can ask for. I mean, this is just a game. It's just basketball. It's just sports. And when you're just, we all want to enjoy ourselves. Yes, it's competitive. Yes, we want to win. But Chad was always enjoying himself, no matter what, no matter what the situation was, no matter what the scenario was. So again, I wish I had more for you, but in terms of
That's
yeah, I mean that he was just a happy-go-lucky guy and a big teddy bear.
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. And I'll never forget the last interview he did was the exit interviews. He was one of the players that was there for it. And he still had that little smile on his face, right? Like
Yeah,
the compartmentalization of it, of when he was on the court, he was a fierce competitor. Like, I would never want to go up one-on-one with that guy, because he was big, he was strong. Like, even you see him, like when they would do their workouts in the gym, right? Like, he would just be pumping so much weight. Like, he was a giant, and he was as strong as he was big, right? But when the game was over, like, he understood the difference. Like, there's like, basketball's part of life, is the way I kind of perceived it. It's not
yeah,
life, but it's a
yeah,
big part of life. And he understood that it was an avenue for him to do bigger and better things. And the impact he had in 33 years is, I think most of us would wish to have in a lifetime, in terms of how he'll be remembered. And I think the city, the team have done a great job at honoring
yes,
him.
yes,
And it's continued on. The other teams too. I
yeah,
saw Montreal did a moment of silence.
yes.
So, the teams across the league have done a great job, in the league itself. So, yeah, his memories, he might not be with us anymore, but his legacy is going to last a long, long time.
Yeah. Well said.
Chris,
Well said.
thank you so much for making the time, joining us. Enjoy the rest of the season, and we'll surely have you back for our next matchups here when Vancouver and Winnipeg meet again. And enjoy the game on Wednesday.
Thank you. Good luck, but not too much good luck. And and we'll talk to you very soon. Okay. Thanks for having me, man.
That was Chris Wiggins, sideline reporter for the CEBL in Vancouver, covering the Vancouver Bandits. A lot of great insight there. Great words about Chad, as always, and we'll continue to do that throughout the season. But a lot of interesting things that he brought up there. In terms of the team cohesion. Some of the how would you put it, the consistencies with this team, and some of the things they've improved on from even just a year ago, at least early on. This is a team that, seems to be clicking, seems to be enjoying each other. Um, a team that's going to be tough to beat for the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Just I was looking at the where is it here? The averages. As we look at the averages and points, Vancouver is averaging over 3 games, averaging 107 points, just shy of 108 points a game, only allowing 72 points against. That's the best in the league. And on both runs, with the exception of Montreal, rather. Montreal is allowing a little bit less at 66 points per game. But Winnipeg, currently ninth in points for at 79.7 points a game. And when you look at the points against, they are at 93.3. So right in the middle of the pack. They're fifth in that regard. The worst is Saskatchewan, allowing 95 at this point. So this is a game, as I said, where you can turn things around. Panic button's not anywhere near right now. I know there's some fans that are a little bit worried. It's a short season, of course. But at the end of the day, the reality is they are going to be in the Final Four. So there is less pressure in that sense of, playoff positioning, all these other things. So the Sea Bears do have the luxury of fine-tuning and maybe taking a little more time to see how this unit works to build up towards the end. But there has to be some adjustments, and it will be interesting to see what adjustments are going to be made for Vancouver, who is a different team, but also very athletic, quick, big, can shoot the three, and on defense, stingy. So you're going to be working harder for your points, and you're going to be working very hard for your own points, as we saw against Calgary. And in 2 straight games against Calgary, they weren't able to do it. There's been a chance to practice in between there. And this is a chance now for Winnipeg to make a statement, right? If you can go into have Vancouver come home, ride the momentum and the energy that is at Canada Life Center, as you've done in the 2 years past, and come out with a big win, it would put a lot of people at ease, and I'm sure it'd be a big weight off their shoulders, but not going to be an easy task. That is for sure. So that game is on Friday. And it will be, what time is that one? I want to say 7:30. Let me double check to be sure. Yeah. 7 o'clock. So this one is Wednesday, 7 o'clock start. It will be on CEBL Plus and TSN Plus, as well as Game Network Plus. So if you have any of those, it's free on CEBL Plus. So make sure that you're subscribed there. If you have TSN Plus, it'll be on there as well. I will have the call along with Dave Larkins and Emily Potter, who made her debut as the sideline reporter last game and did a wonderful job. So she'll be back on the sidelines again this week on Wednesday. After that, the Sea Bears will play the Ottawa Blackjacks. That will be on Saturday, a 7:30 game. Blackjacks visiting here. And they just had that wonderful outdoor game. I didn't even bring that up at the start of the show, but unfortunate it ended at halftime. But it looked really cool. It was at IGA Stadium, the tennis stadium in Montreal. And I thought they did a wonderful job. I know some people that were there, and even though the game had to be canceled halfway through, still said it was a blast. People are raving about the event. It's something that the league has said they want to make an annual thing. So I'm interested now, as we talked about with Chris, is Vancouver going to be the next place where they go? Will it be Winnipeg? Winnipeg's got some outdoor options as well. I think it could be a huge event here as well. But yeah, just I don't know if it was the dry ice from the halftime performance or what, but the condensation on the court, they weren't able to control it, and they had to call the game for the safety of the players, and that's totally understandable. But just a wonderful job there for everybody involved. So everybody from the CEBL office who may be watching or listening, great job. Same for those in Montreal and the Blackjacks for putting on a great game. Wait to see what the outcome is there because it has been postponed for now. So it's Blackjacks that are still at 1-1 before they come into town. But we'll have another episode a little later this week, focusing more on that Blackjacks game and covering this Bandits game as well. The Bandits after this game will be off to Edmonton. Again, Edmonton 1-3. So, this is a good road trip for Vancouver, but they're probably looking at this one as an opportunity to go 5-0 here. And it's very realistic going up against the Sea Bears and Stingers, who are in 3rd and 4th place respectively. So, yeah. Chance for the Sea Bears, though, to turn their season around if they could take that one. So we'll see what they could do. We'll be back later this week with another episode. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you're on the audio side, tune in on YouTube at Target Score Podcast. If you're not able to watch it, you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, you name it, it's there. Follow us on Instagram at Target Score WPG. If you're watching on YouTube, there is a QR code there just below the screen that you can scan and follow us from there. Again, the game day reports will be there, weekly reports, scoreboards, all that fun stuff. All the breaking news will be through Target Score WPG, or my Instagram as well at Joey Slattery TV. Enjoy the game Wednesday. Will the Winnipeg Sea Bears turn their fortunes and shock the CEBL early in the season and give a very dominant and powerful Vancouver Bandits their first loss of the season? We'll have to wait and see. We'll be back later this week and recap it all. Enjoy the game on Wednesday. We'll see you there. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.